The theater was packed to capacity on that warm February evening in 2025 when 16-year-old Miguel Santos and his 13-year-old sister Elena walked nervously onto the stage of America's Got Talent. The audience immediately noticed something different about these two young performers. They were not dressed in flashy costumes or designer outfits like so many contestants before them. Miguel wore a simple white shirt that had been carefully pressed and Elena had on a modest blue dress that looked like it had been borrowed for the occasion. Both of them were barefoot. Simon Cowell leaned forward in his judge's chair with his trademark skeptical expression already forming on his face. He had seen thousands of auditions over his decades in the entertainment industry and he thought he had seen everything. He was about to be proven completely wrong. The siblings stood center stage holding hands and the bright lights illuminated the nervousness in their eyes. Host Terry Crews approached them with his characteristic warmth and asked them to introduce themselves. Miguel spoke first in accented but clear English explaining that they had traveled over 7,000 miles from the Philippines to be here. He told the audience that they lived in Tondo, one of the most impoverished areas of Manila, where their father worked as a fisherman and their mother sold vegetables in the local market. Elena added in a soft voice that they had 5 younger brothers and sisters at home and that their family lived in a small house made of salvaged materials next to the polluted waters of Manila Bay. The audience grew quiet. This was not the typical backstory of hopeful young performers chasing fame and fortune. Simon interrupted them with a question that seemed almost dismissive. He asked why they had come all this way when they clearly could not afford it and what made them think they had what it takes to win this competition. There was an uncomfortable silence in the theater. Miguel looked at his sister and then back at Simon. He explained that their community had pooled together money for months to buy their plane tickets. Neighbors who barely had enough to feed their own families had contributed whatever they could. The local church had held fundraisers. Even the children in their neighborhood had donated coins they had saved. Everyone believed in them because music was the one thing that gave their community hope in the midst of daily struggles with poverty and hunger. Elena then spoke up with unexpected confidence. She said they were not here for fame or money but to show the world that talent and dreams exist everywhere, even in the darkest and most forgotten corners of the earth. She said they wanted to prove that your circumstances at birth do not determine your worth or your potential. The audience began to applaud but Simon raised his hand to stop them. He looked directly at the siblings and said that words were easy but this was a talent competition and they would be judged solely on what they could deliver. He asked them what they were going to perform. Miguel answered that they would be singing a song they had written themselves about their journey and their family. Simon rolled his eyes and exchanged glances with the other judges. Original songs by amateur performers rarely went well on this show. Heidi Klum looked sympathetic but doubtful. Howie Mandel seemed already prepared for disappointment. Sofia Vergara had a kind smile but appeared skeptical. The audience sensed the tension. This audition seemed headed for disaster before it had even begun. Miguel and Elena walked to the microphone stands that had been set up for them. They looked at each other one more time and nodded. The music track began to play. It was a simple piano melody that filled the theater with a haunting beauty. Then Miguel began to sing. The very first note that came out of his mouth seemed to stop time itself. It was not just a beautiful voice. It was a voice that carried the weight of experience far beyond his 16 years. It was filled with pain and hope and longing and love all at once. His tone was pure and powerful yet incredibly controlled. Within seconds every person in that theater was completely captivated. Elena joined him on the second verse and her voice blended with her brother's in perfect harmony. Her voice had an ethereal quality that seemed almost angelic. The lyrics they sang told the story of their family's struggles, of nights when there was no food, of their father risking his life on dangerous waters, of their mother's calloused hands, of their siblings who looked to them for hope. Simon's expression changed completely. The skepticism vanished from his face and was replaced by something rarely seen, genuine shock. His mouth opened slightly and he leaned even further forward in his chair. Heidi brought her hand to her mouth and tears began forming in her eyes. Howie sat perfectly still as if afraid any movement might break the spell. Sophia was already crying openly. The audience was silent except for a few audible gasps. As the song built to its climax, Miguel and Elena's voices soared together in a way that seemed impossible for two young people from a slum with no formal training. They had learned to sing in their local church and by listening to whatever music they could access on an old shared phone in their community. The song spoke of dreams that refused to die even when crushed by poverty. It spoke of families that stay together through unimaginable hardship. It spoke of love that transcends material wealth. Every word was authentic because it came from their lived experience. When they reached the final chorus, something extraordinary happened. Miguel hit a note so high and so pure that several people in the audience actually stood up. Elena's harmony underneath was perfect. Their voices intertwined in a way that professional vocal coaches spend years trying to teach. The emotion in the theater was overwhelming. Grown men were wiping their eyes. The camera crew was visibly moved. As the final note faded into silence, there was a moment where nobody moved. It was as if the entire audience needed a second to process what they had just witnessed. Then the theater exploded. Every single person in the audience leapt to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation. The judges remained in their seats, but all four of them were on their feet within seconds. The applause was deafening and it continued for what seemed like an eternity. Miguel and Elena stood there looking overwhelmed and disbelieving. Elena began to cry and Miguel put his arm around her. They had done it. They had given everything they had and the response was beyond anything they could have imagined. Simon picked up his microphone and raised his hand to quiet the audience. He looked at the siblings and for one of the rare times in his career he seemed genuinely at a loss for words. He started speaking and his voice had a quality of emotion that shocked everyone. He said that in all his years of judging talent shows across the world he had heard tens of thousands of singers. He said that maybe once or twice in a decade someone comes along who is truly special. He said that what he had just witnessed was not just special talent but something transcendent. He told Miguel and Elena that they had not just sung a song but had opened a window into their souls and allowed everyone to see the power of the human spirit. Heidi spoke next and was crying so hard she could barely get the words out. She said that she had 4 children and that what she wanted most for them was to understand that privilege comes with responsibility and that hearing Miguel and Elena's story and their voices had reminded her of what truly matters in life. She said it was the most beautiful and important audition she had ever seen. Howie said that he was not an emotional person but that he had been moved to his core. He said that the song they had written was better than songs written by professional songwriters with decades of experience. Sophia said that as an immigrant herself she understood what it meant to come from nothing and dream of something better. She said that Miguel and Elena represented the dreams of millions of people around the world who feel invisible and forgotten. Then Simon did something that shocked everyone in the theater and would shock millions watching around the world. He stood up and said that earlier this season he had made a promise to himself and to the producers that he would not use his golden buzzer this year. He said he wanted to be tougher and more selective. He said he had turned down numerous acts that other judges thought deserved the golden buzzer. But then he said that rules were made to be broken when something truly extraordinary happens. He looked directly at Miguel and Elena and said that their performance was not just extraordinary but historic. He said they reminded him why he got into this business in the first place. He said they represented everything that was good and pure about talent and determination and the human spirit. Simon Cowell placed his hand over the golden buzzer. The entire audience began screaming. Miguel and Elena looked confused because they did not fully understand what was happening. Then Simon slammed his hand down. Golden confetti exploded from the ceiling of the theater. The music swelled. The audience went absolutely crazy. Miguel and Elena stood there in shock as golden paper rained down on them. They grabbed each other and began jumping up and down. Their faces showed pure disbelief and joy. All 4 judges came onto the stage to embrace them. Simon hugged both of them tightly and was seen whispering something in Miguel's ear. Later he would reveal that he told them their lives were about to change forever and that they deserved every bit of it. The video of their audition was uploaded to social media immediately after the show aired. Within 24 hours it had accumulated over 50 million views. Within a week it had been watched over 200 million times across all platforms. People from every corner of the globe commented on the video. Many shared their own stories of struggle and how the performance had given them hope. Celebrities began sharing the video. Major news networks covered the story. The president of the Philippines issued a statement congratulating them. Their community in Tondo was flooded with media attention and offers of support and donations. The siblings became international sensations overnight. But perhaps the most beautiful part of the story came in the weeks that followed. Miguel and Elena did not forget where they came from. They announced that any money they made from the show would be used to build a music school in their community so that other children who had talent but no resources could have opportunities they never had. They wanted to prove that one golden buzzer could create a ripple effect that changed an entire community. They wanted their story to be just the beginning. Simon Cowell himself pledged to personally fund the construction of the school and to provide scholarships for the students. The story of two barefoot siblings from a Manila slum became a story of hope that transcended borders and circumstances and reminded the world that talent and dreams cannot be confined by poverty.